landslide puts Japan at a crossroads, Trump ally or GC anchor, and all in that way. And is a global wrecking is a Trump is a global wrecking ball, is what the European security experts are saying. So Trump world order hangs over Europe on the eve of a key defense conference. So Trump, the demolition man of world order, is what European security experts are warning. And all along those lines, U.S. not trying to dismantle NATO or undermine world order, says an ambassador, even though the Guardian is saying that they're saying that as it's actually happening. So definitely that's what folks are talking about. China to support reunification forces in Taiwan and go after separatists. So that's something else that's being reported in the news also. And Taiwan's political friction is a boon for Beijing. So definitely that's something that is in the news as well. Senior Chinese leader Wang Hening is to oppose intervention by external forces and all along those lines. So definitely there's something that folks are talking about as well. And West tweeting privately said Israel committing war crimes and backed sanctions on a rogue government. So minister told not to publish their own Mendelssohn messages and all in that space. Streeting wrote off his re-election in the WhatsApp exchanges with Mendelssohn. So top UK minister accuses Israel of Gaza war crimes in a private message to Peter Mendelssohn. And Thailand's ruling party readies for coalition talks after their big election win. So that's something that folks are talking about. And obsession with growth is destroying nature. That's what 150 countries have warned. So nature loss could spell extinction for businesses. So companies told to protect nature now or face extinction themselves. So more than 100 countries agree to focus on GDP harms nature. So definitely that's something that folks are talking about as well. And Russia's sabotage campaign is becoming bolder. No frontline. Russia's hybrid pressure on Germany arming in Lithuania and Russia's hybrid war on Europe. So definitely still talking about that war going on in that area. And 53 migrants are dead or missing in a shipwreck off of the Libyan coast, UN agency says. So definitely looks like a 53 migrants missing after the boat capsized off of Libya. So definitely that is a tragedy that's coming off of the African continent, and there were at least a couple of babies among those that are dead or missing. And while the EU wants to end the price cap on Russian oil and move to the next stage, Greece and Malta hesitate over EU's Russia oil service ban. So EU is seeking a ban of Russian crypto assets to curb sanctions, evasion, and all along those lines. And Brenton Tarrant appeals his murder conviction and sentence in New Zealand. New Zealand mosque shooter always planned to admit his crime, his former lawyer tells appeals court. And definitely, it looks like New Zealand mosque shooter is seeking to discard his guilty pleas. And definitely looks like he's trying to have a appeal in that area and all along those lines. So we'll see if the appeal is successful. And the Brotherhood Hezbollah Exodus, lessons from the capture of senior Sunni Atwa. So Israel strikes in Lebanon, kill 4, including a child, Lebanese Health Right Ministry says. So definitely that's something that folks are talking about as well. And heavy gunfire was heard near prison in Guinea's capital, Conakry. So definitely that is something that's being talked about as well and all along those lines. So there's a lot going on in the world, whether it's in Africa, Asia, or some of the various other countries that are out there as well. So there's a lot going on in the world. I'm bringing Rick, see what he's got on his mind and all in that space. But we'll see if other folks join us also. But how are you doing today, Rick, and what's shaking in your world?
I don't know what's shaking yet because it's 7 a.m. on the West Coast, and I didn't wake up till about 45 minutes ago. Bad Bunny is still trending on X. People are still, holding to their various sides, though the side that, like Congressman Randy Fine says, anybody who liked the halftime show should be deported. So.
Well, he wants to deport a whole lot of people because a lot of people like the halftime show. So
yeah, so I mean, it's ridiculous, and we should probably move on from that.
Well, they're saying that the use of AI and deepfakes are playing a role in the search for Nancy Guthrie, and I know that there was some talk about a ransom demand and everything like that. And of course, that's the sports anchor that was supposed to be doing a lot of coverage of not her, but her granddaughter, I think, of the Olympics and everything. But she's been dealing with this horrible situation.
Sure. Yeah. So the DOJ is still sitting on 3 million Epstein documents that it's not releasing for various reasons. Kim has been talking about Lex Wexner. This, he founded Victoria's Secret and a bunch of other companies, and he is listed as a co-conspirator in a bunch of documents. And Thomas Massie, the congressman, who says that if the DOJ is not going to release the names of the billionaires who were abusing the girls on the island, that he will. So he was talking about Wexner. So anyway, Wexner is in the spotlight right now. It will be interesting to see if he suffers any consequences, because he is highly, highly implicated.
Well, speaking of consequences, it looks like the Democrats have rejected the latest White House offer on ICE reforms with Homeland Security and everything like that. So, administration allies say judicial warrants a red line for White House in DHS funding as talks as shutdown looms. So we're still having the possibility of a shutdown as well. And the Democrats want to rein in ICE, and apparently their ideas are facing various blowbacks and everything like that. And even ICE defies judges' orders to release detainees step by step and everything like that. So judges are regularly threatening contempt charges against the DOJ in immigration cases. So ICE is also still very much in the news, as well as more immigrants are challenging their ICE detention more than ever before. So Trump's immigration crackdown is straining federal courts, and judges apparently are raising the alarm because they're getting a whole lot of cases that have to do with
because a judge can rule against ICE, but who is going to enforce the ruling? Yeah. ICE continues to just do whatever it wants in many cases.
And it looks like Trump's still going at war at our northern neighbors. I hope that Sasha comes in at some point, but he's threatening to block the opening of a bridge between U.S. and Canada. This is a bridge that was going to be in Detroit, but President Trump is threatening to block Gordie Howe International Bridge from opening. So he's threatening to stop this bridge, and he's wanting compensation like he always wants. He wants compensation. So Trump says Gordie Howe Bridge won't open without Canadian concession. So I guess he wants some money and some compensation and everything like that. So definitely be interesting to see how that goes on.
I don't see how this helps our economy. I don't know that we have. I think the January jobs numbers are supposed to come out tomorrow, but the preliminary numbers show that we only added 22,000 jobs last month, which is about 250,000 jobs per year, which is 1/8 of what the U.S. has been adding from 2011 through 2024, not counting the COVID year of 2020. So we basically haven't added any ads since Trump's tariffs were announced last April, which is bad for the economy.
It's very bad for the economy. I know sometimes we have Sharif, and he was in here earlier, but without a border invasion, this was a story that the New York Times was reporting. The Texas GOP is turning to an old enemy. They're actually going after Islam. So inside the Texas GOP is having a whole anti-Muslim campaigning.
How does any of this? How does the Gordie Howe Bridge? How does going after Muslims, who are only 1 to 1.3% of the U.S. population? That is 3 to 4 million people out of a country of 345 million. How does any of that help address the issues that Americans care about, which are mostly how they are doing financially, personally?
Yeah, and apparently they're saying that we're in a power struggle with Europe's resentment growing over Trump's newest efforts to go after Canada and go after Greenland and go after a number of other folks as well. Sasha, glad you joined us. It seems like Trump is going after your country of Canada now. I was just talking about that. So apparently he doesn't want this Gordie Howe Bridge to be built without getting some money and or some compensation and also some concessions. So what's your take on this as he's going to also meet with the Israeli leader? But yeah, Canada was in the news today because of this notion of him saying that he doesn't want this bridge to be built that would be between Detroit and Canada.
It's a normal gangster style blackmail. Now, what's happened is that bridge was being built from I think 2018 until now. It was completed on time, paid fully by Canada, and ownership belongs to Canada and the state of Michigan. 50-50.
Right.
So what Trump wants, he wants to extract some money either from Canada or Michigan or both, and he wants to claim 50% ownership. So that would reduce Canada and Michigan 25 each or so. And there is no legal mechanism of doing so. There is not even, it's unclear how he's going to physically prevent that bridge from the opening. And this is just another example of his bombastic, absolutely groundless whims that he wants to satisfy. And it's that makes him. I even don't know. He's trying to make a fool of himself, of or he is a fool. I don't get really.
Well,
I don't get it.
it's completely senseless and unjustified. Canada builds a bridge. Trump is going to somehow stop it, which he won't. But just named after maybe the most beloved hockey player frickin' ever.
Good.
He played for 25 years, by the way, for Red Wings in
Right.
that team.
Yep. Detroit's team and everything like that. And he was definitely up there with Gretzky and a number of others in terms of, and many people, like you said, think he's the greatest. Housing has been an issue. We talked about it here on this network and everything. And apparently the House has approved a housing bill, and now they're setting the stage for a tough Senate negotiation. So it's about affordability and all along those lines. And definitely there's a lot of concerns about home costs in the United States. So the House has overwhelmingly passed a bipartisan housing package, but we know that Trump probably won't go for that as well. But what is your thoughts around this notion of this housing crisis? Because I know it's been an issue even where you are, Rick, and everything like that. So I guess they're trying to address some of these housing issues.
Well, so one, I mean, it's got a number of, you don't have a housing crisis without a number of causes. One cause is giant investment firms buying up single family homes and condos and apartments to flip or to use as Airbnbs and stuff, and as investments, which pumps up the prices. Sasha maybe knows more of the, what is causing the housing crisis. Deporting a ton of illegals does not help housing either, because about 30% of construction workers in the U.S. are undocumented immigrants.
Yep, that's very much true and everything. And the housing is also impacting why a lot of people are homeless. And even in New York, they're saying that there's a lot of homeless in the streets of New York. I know there are a lot there in California, and extreme cold left in New York.
I think New York is number one for homeless, and California is number two with 100,000 homeless people.
In California, or just overall?
California, 100,000, 73,000 of them in LA, and then the rest mostly up in San Francisco. So we have a lot. And if you're going to be homeless, it's nice to do it. I mean, it's not nice to be homeless, but it's nicer to do it in LA than in New York in February.
Yeah, definitely, because they said that there's already been a couple of deaths. I think they said like around 18 that have been there because of people not surviving the cold and everything like that. I saw in San Francisco, y'all are having a strike going on. So the San Francisco Unified School is closed as teachers begin the first strike in 47 years over pay and health care. So a lot of these strikes, whether it was the truck drivers in Canada, or whether there's a number of others, are about trying to get better pay, because a lot of the pay is underneath where it should be at this particular time in society. So what is your take on that? And what have you been following this strike?
Yeah, I have, because my wife's best friend is a Los Angeles public school teacher, and she's worried the strike will. She's months away from retiring. She's
Right.
4 months away. She's been a teacher for 40 years or more, and if the strike spreads to LA, she doesn't want to, but she may have to cross the picket lines, because since she's months away from retiring, leaving now would cost her a huge chunk of her pension. Yeah, we could have a statewide teachers strike, or at least in the big cities.
Yeah, because this one has already got a lot of folks that says that it's closed school for about 50,000 students, just in the one that's going on in San Francisco. So it could get up to hundreds of thousands, if not millions, if it becomes a statewide strike and everything.
Yeah,
So,
I tend to believe that when a large group of people go out on strike, that they generally have good reason to. That their wages are not keeping up. That I know teachers have to pay for a lot of their own classroom supplies. I should look up what their demands are, because I would assume it's not just higher pay.
I assume they've got several demands, including probably things that they want in terms of equipment, in terms of textbooks, and a number of other things. I see that Kim's behind the scenes. I know she's got that Epstein special that I mentioned earlier and everything. I think you might have mentioned this earlier, but Howard Lutnick, who is Trump's Commerce Secretary, is facing calls to resign over his ties to Epstein. So it might be directly impacting one of Trump's friends and everything like that, because apparently he's caught up in this scandal and all along those lines. So definitely there are some folks, including Connie, that are saying that Lutnick should be out of Trump's cabinet. And there's definitely people that are urging him to step down, just like there have been some people, I believe there was the Norwegian ambassador and others that have stepped down from around the country and everything like that. And I did see that some of the institutions that were getting money from Epstein and stuff like that, they have now been cut down in terms of the money that they're getting from.
So Lex Wexner, as Kim will tell you, is all over the Epstein files. He looks very guilty, but has never paid any penalties. He's he's a billionaire, and his name, when you give money to a university or a hospital, they put your name on the building if you give them 10, 15, $50 million. Mm-hmm. And now people are starting to call to take his name off his stuff. I mean, imagine, if there were Jeffrey Epstein buildings out there, that couldn't stand. So we'll see. All right. So 6,000 teachers, public school teachers, are striking in San Francisco, closing down 120 public schools. The union is asking for a 9% raise over 2 years. Let's see what else. The officials countered with a 6% raise over 3 years. So that they came back with 2% a year. The teachers want 4.5% a year. I'm looking for other issues here.
Well, while you're looking for that, I know that Nick has been very critical of our education system and everything like that. And now it looks like the military is joining that conversation. So what's your take on this? Because I know we had, I had wanted to get to this a couple of days ago, but Pete Hegseth wants to, is ending the military education ties with Harvard amid their feud with Trump and everything. And his quote was, "We train warriors, not wokesters," and everything.
When people, all right. So Hegseth said, he likes kicking women out of the military. He says no DEI. He says, no elite institutions. Even though Hegseth once went to Princeton, so people are calling him out for his hypocrisy. And I would counter that that you want an educated military force in a time when military technology is changing at the fastest rate in history. But 5 years ago we weren't fighting with drones. Now drones are the central weapon of the Ukraine-Russia, of Russia's invasion and Ukraine resisting. You need educated people.
Speaking of educated people, I also saw a quote I was watching last night on some Instagram and everything like that, or maybe it was Facebook, but it was a quote from one of the congresswomen and everything like that, and they were asking about DEI and all in that space, and they were making the point that studying the Holocaust is as much DEI as studying African American studies. And Lindsay, I mean not Lindsay, but Miss McMahon did not really have an answer for that. She actually kind of tried to evade that question. So, what is our thoughts about Linda McMahon and what she's doing with the education department?
Well, she's a grifter and an idiot. Her company was she and her husband used to run WWE, World Wrestling, and they were kicked out for corrupt leadership. She has no business being head of the Department of Education. And this, I hadn't heard about the Holocaust thing, but you absolutely study the Holocaust. And by the way, when people talk about the Holocaust, they talk about the 6 million Jews that Hitler murdered. Mm-hmm. But it's not 6 million. It's 6 million Jews plus another 5 million other people that Hitler found undesirable. Gay people, handicapped people, Polish people, anybody that he didn't like, he shipped them off to murder camps. Oh, your voice, Nick. Gotta reload. Nick, your voice has the sped up super high thing going on.
I'd like to mention something about Epstein files. So they came redacted, those that were released, okay? So now two congressmen, one Republican and one Democrat, they were allowed to see the files before they were redacted. So there's a black little boxes, so they could go behind and see what's there. And you know what they discovered? They discovered that these files came to DOJ already redacted, a lot of them. And therefore, the question now is, who, at what direction, redacted these files even before they came to DOJ? Or you know what? Why don't you say that United States of America is being run by a clan of pedophiles, and that's how it's going to be? Leave it if you don't like it. Good luck to you. Bye-bye, babies. That's
so you mentioned we mentioned the Republican, Thomas Massie. The Democrat is Jamie Raskin, who claims that when he saw them, these things had come pre-redacted, blocked out for mysterious reasons. And I guess some of the
So I'm going to mention a few things. Okay. One, I have a little surprise for everyone because I finally finished mostly vetting out a new piece of evidence, which was a piece of evidence in one of the case files that I had read over the summer, which in the case file was Epstein's Black Book, but it just didn't seem to be available. And so I went out on a hunt because people who were in the case files should have received the case files unredacted so they could be in the trial, right, and ask questions. So it's all should be public knowledge. The only thing that should have been redacted prior to the DOJ getting it, the only evidence that should have been, or not evidence, but only thing that should have been redacted were the victims' names in children's names, and the children were the victims. Many of the victims or their families had been threatened or offered a reward if they testified in Epstein's favor over the years. So, and there is evidence of that too. You just have to read through thousands and thousands and thousands of pages of case files But when I opened up the files that were not really redacted, I kind of understood how some of this works because I've done a lot of research in lawsuits over the years. But what I recognized real quick was either the victims were called and labeled Jane Doe 1, Jane Doe 2, all the way up to Jane Doe whatever, or their names were redacted. What happened was over the course of time, people would come in and seal a file, or as in Elon's case, his attorney sealed his replies upon entry of the court. So maybe Nick can, enlighten us a little bit of how could this happen? How could they come in and just seal their responses and records when they're not the victim? When what they have to say should be extreme evidence. So that, but just to let you know, yeah, they were redacted in many ways because of the victims. Now, when the victims got older, they had a right to say, I don't want mine redacted anymore. And I think that they've all come forward and have said, I don't care because everyone knows who I am now. I'm, standing on the White House lawn. So yeah, there was some redactions, but it was to protect the victim, not the accused. And I think people need to understand that. And all this rhetoric and noise, I'm disappointed in the journalists out there because they could have gotten this evidence just as easy as I did. It was all public, accessible, with exception to Elon's submitted of his testimony and deposition. But everyone else's was wide open. You could read every name in there from Les Wexner to Kennedy's to just everybody's name. Like I said, the one piece of evidence I wanted more than anything because I felt like it would vet both the case files I had as well as the itself, kind of like cross-referencing, was the Black Book. And the Black Book was mentioned by the Houseman, even though Jesseline says there was none. Way back before Jesseline probably was even arrested, a Black Book was mentioned in one of the testimonies by the Houseman who took the Black Book, made copies of it for his own protection in the future if something happened. Mostly, though, when he was testifying, everybody kind of caught the gist that he was going to use it to protect himself, as blackmail. But he testified that he was using it because he also kept his own Black Book, and he wanted to justify anything that Epstein had him do. So he had Epstein's book and his book and all his receipts. He kept receipts for everything right down to when he rented Virginia a car for Epstein. Epstein asked him to rent a car for Virginia, and he asked him to take one of the girls he had just raped a bouquet of flowers to her dance recital at high school.
Can I mention one thing that Raskin said is in these weirdly redacted things is Trump has a story that he kicked Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago after Epstein poached some of his employees, I think Virginia Guthrie, as a matter of fact, but also because Trump decided Epstein was evil. There are documents that, if you see the unredacted version, they contradict this story. According to Raskin, they clash with Trump's previous assertions about when and how his association with Epstein ended. So
there are a lot of speculation on that, and the one person who could testify to that is deceased. But what you can do is review the evidence, which is the case files. But also at the same time, they were in a bidding war over a house. And you have to really read through all of the lawsuits going all the way, and the police reports and stories going all the way back to 92, when the first police reports were filed and nobody would do anything for the victims. And this was long before, Trump was running for president. So nobody was trying to ruin his reputation to run for president. A lot of this stuff happened long before that. But, you have to read everything to understand their relationship. There are FBI interviews and, recorded investigations with Epstein, and they would point blank ask him these questions, and he answered them. So you have to get those and watch them. It's just a lot. And that's why I started the timeline. And then I started adding other things that were going on. And I was able to expose a lot more than what just the investigation was exposing. Who else could have been involved based on other people being arrested? Because there's just a lot of things going on. But yeah, you can sit there and say it was because he was poaching girls. That's a horrible word to use. But because now Trump is saying he was using them as slaves as well. But Mar-a-Lago was being used for the activities with Jeffrey Epstein, for the Calendar Girl event that was witnessed. So if you go look up the Calendar Girl event, you'll finally see the testimony of one of the guys in a magazine, but it's also a testimony in one of the lawsuits. So they hosted some of the parties just for themselves, just for Epstein and Trump at Mar-a-Lago. But do I think that Epstein was snagging people from anywhere he could? Yeah, but his type what he would go for were people who were indigent, not the customers at Mar-a-Lago. He wanted people that would never be able to afford to have him go through court. They couldn't afford attorneys. He wanted girls that would be craving money. He wanted the indigent. So that's where they stalked. They stalked the indigent. They stalked the people who would go, oh, yeah. I want to be a Victoria's Secret model, because he was the top dog of Victoria's Secret agency. He was the top dog of Bath and Body Works. He was the top dog of Limited. Because he had the power of attorney over Wexner's Industries, all of them. So they misused Epstein's powers and credibility that he had, and they used it. But he wasn't going after the Mar-a-Lago clients. He was going after employees. Trump had masseuses in his clubhouse, and Jeffrey was, building what would look creditable, which was a massage company. And so he had a lot of the girls. That's how they groomed him. They groomed him by having them massage them first, touch the bodies and stuff like that. I've read everything. I had to stop for a while because it made me cry. You got little girls and they're in a predicament and situation they can't get out of. Every girl's testimony is the same, and they didn't even know each other. It was so much the same. I thought I was reading the same girl's testimony. I would have to go back and confirm I was reading a different Jane Doe. But and then you have the DA, who, the police built the report to go to trial. The DA kept trying to poo-poo it, and you just have to go look up, or we'll share all of this in the storyline. This is going too far. But what I do have is that I have worked on vetting out the phone records. I will be sharing them with whoever's on the panel. I'm going to try to get you a copy today because it won't make it to publication. But just promise me you won't share any of the phone numbers with anyone, because some people don't change their phone numbers. I've had mine for 40 years and 30 years. I have two. So just promise me that. And then when I publish the phone records, I will publish the phone numbers and the contact information redacted, because I want to be fair to the people who are in those phone records. There are a lot of people, 2,000 names, 2,000 names. And that's probably not all. That's just all that the houseman was able to probably copy. But like I said, this was identified way early in one of the cases when they did a deposition. And what happened to the houseman was when Epstein died, he was like, well, I'm just going to make money off of this black book and I'm going to sell it online. I'm going to auction it off online. And they caught him in seconds. Like they busted him and they took that book away from him. But I'm sure, you know, my thing was he probably made copies of it and had others in storage. But they arrested him. Okay. For what? For selling Epstein's black book? They arrested him and held him. You know,
right. So Florida's full of idiots. So I mean, yeah. Every place is, but Florida has people who are famously ridiculous. So,
well, their laws enforce them to be famously ridiculous and immoral and criminal. Because
let Sasha say something. Sasha's had his hand.
Go ahead, Sasha.
You have to take.
I can't see my screen very well, so go ahead.
You have to see the bigger picture to understand who is Epstein and how it all happened. Who is Ghislaine Maxwell? Who is she? She is a daughter of well-known spy and businessman by the name Robert Maxwell, who supposedly, he is of the origin of the Czech Republic. He was born there. He was working supposedly for KGB, Mossad, maybe British intelligence. And his daughter, Ghislaine, she was always with him all her life. She hasn't done nothing in her life except assisting her father. So she intricately knew all the setup and all the interworkings. And then she was with Epstein and helping him all the way until he either died or killed or disappeared. There are three versions of what's happened to him.
So,
hold on.
That's in the book.
Okay.
Wait a sec. Epstein, there is absolutely zero chance that he could operate and become what he became finally without the supervision of KGB, later FSB. This is all KGB set up. All the story of Epstein, it's a KGB setup. The Epstein was just a manipulator, and he was doing a little bit things. He's bringing models and selling them and banging them and whatever else he wants to do. This is nothing. It's all under KGB. And Trump was KGB's asset since 1979. It's long enough, and especially when in 2000 he declared his presidential aspirations. So then attention on Trump multiplied, and this is how eventually in the year 2007-8, the hundreds of millions of dollars were moving to Trump from Russia, KGB, and so on. This you have to have in mind. You are now fighting not just some clerics or so on. You are fighting a giant KGB operation assisted reasonably well by Trump and his stooges, and you are fighting this mighty machine. It may not be sort of without consequences. Be careful.
Well, okay, so I'm just presenting data that just exists, and you are absolutely correct. There were a lot of government entities involved with this. Epstein, it was, one of the case files I read, that Alex Acosta, and I read his story as well, who was one of the prosecutor. he testified later that he was informed that Epstein was part of CIA and to tread lightly and to negotiate him out of this situation. That's why he did what he did, because he was instructed to do so. And that hurt his career tremendously. He had to step down from the position that he was assigned by president. Majority of Epstein's attorneys, and I mean the majority of them going back to the 90s, anyone that worked in his life, anyone who protected him, has always had some kind of appointment with the president of some kind. Lefkowitz, Acosta, Barr, there's just so many of them, and you can tie them all to Kirkland and Ellis. They've all worked for Kirkland and Ellis. So yeah, you can tie all of this together, but it's just so spotted going through the years. You couldn't. When I finally sat down and did a tight timeline of everything, that's when I started seeing. But you're right. Epstein was said to have had, and it said exactly when he met with the head of the CIA, who gave him credentials to be able to travel anywhere in the world he wanted and do whatever he wanted. And I think that this was all part of the sex trade business. I really do. It was a cover-up.
There's a creepy detail that showed up in the newly released records that Jeffrey Epstein, for more than a decade before his death, suffered from low testosterone levels, less than half of the level to be diagnosed with low testosterone. And this Jeffrey Epstein wanted to have sex. His body was not letting him have all the sex he wanted. So he probably became even creepier and pervier so things had to be extra nasty for him to respond sexually. So instead of fixing his body, he decided to molest 1,000 girls.
Well, and that could be it too. But, just to let you know, it was 1982 when he met with the CIA, and they gave him special passports and credentials working with the U.S. defense contractor Douglas Leese at the time with the British intelligence. So he was tied in with the British intelligence, along William Barr, who Epstein had known since he worked at the Dalton School, because William Barr was the son of Donald Barr, who was the headmaster. William Barr had past CIA experience, and so the introduction was made in 1982. And then Jeffrey Epstein was employed by the U.S. defense contractor Douglas Leese. And so you can tie in all of this, that he was to be working with the British intelligence, but he worked with everyone. He literally, and they say they felt like that he was too. So, Sasha, this kind of goes back to when you said that Donald Trump was involved with the KGB in 79. Well, that's real close to 82. So you could probably tie all of these people together. If this is why I want to do a public open dialogue. And it's not to say my evidence is solid. I'm only coming forward with what I believe I am confident with, that I vetted in case files, court records, and then vetted again. And again, I've been vetting a lot of this since June. So, but I'm coming forward with what I have, hoping other people will come forward to talk about it as an open dialogue. It's not to say, and I made the name list that I did. The phone list doesn't have this yet, but the name list that I started, I put beside each one what their role was in the case files, whether they were an accused. It doesn't mean they're guilty. Accused does not mean you're guilty. Or whether they were a victim, or if they were just name dropped by Jeffrey Epstein, or if they were a guest but never participated, because the victims would testify if someone participated, because the the investigators had the manifest, and they would go, well, this man came to the island. Did this man participate? Oh, no, no, no. We just had dinner with him. He didn't participate. The girls were very upfront with who had sex with them and who didn't. It's very interesting to read the testimonies, the depositions, the police records. It's hard because, you know, some of these girls are 11. For some strange reason, that was Epstein's preference, 11 to 13. By the time they hit 16, if they had them for any length of time, they became employees that would answer phones and help lure more girls, because a teenager is more luring for young girls than an old man. They will young girls will trust a teenager telling them, hey, I work with Victoria's Secret's head office. Why don't you come and try out with us? So they trained their people. It's a story in itself. But go ahead, Sasha. I'm sorry. It's hard for me to see. I'm going to have to move to another room for tonight's show.
Okay.
Because it's hard for me to see the screen.
I'd like to make sure that you, Kim, understand very well that there are a lot of information, facts that are hidden, and not only just from people like you, but for most of the people in this case. So your work will not be really complete because of that effect. And there are enormous amount of details are very important. For example, when KGB supplied Russian prostitutes to the United States, when they were used by Epstein and supplied to people like Bill Gates, for example, you know, some people believe that he's a genius. I'm not so sure about genius being lured by Russian prostitute and getting gynecology problems and so on. You know, in my opinion, that's not a genius step. So this you have to have in mind. And then you have to have in mind that maybe even introduction of Trump and Epstein was done with the help of KGB or FSB just as well, because both were prominent. The Epstein is coming to KGB interests through Ghislaine and her father. That stuff you cannot underestimate that. And Trump was already in the orbit of KGB. So this is, if you will look at it as it's a KGB setup, what's the problem is with American society is that American elite, and you now see American elite in Epstein files, who they are, what they do. American people are being betrayed by its elites, and that's why they have to absolutely take care of that so-called elite, bring them down, bring them to justice, and actually get rid of them, boycott the companies that they're running, and so on, and get rid of this malaise.
So
I think one of the greatest. Go ahead, Rick. Go ahead.
You can look at espionage and compromise as a second front of the Ukraine invasion. That Russia is aided in its war efforts by political chaos in the U.S. and in the UK, and the direct cost to Russia of the Ukraine war so far, $200 billion. The cost to its economy, $1 trillion. The cost of doing compromise and espionage, a few tens of billions. Propaganda. Russia spends like $10-15 million a year on propaganda. That's nothing. But they get so many benefits out of making America crazy, the UK crazy, which makes us less effective at helping Ukraine.
Yeah.
Well, that's why what's happening right now, Putin is making a bribe of all time $12 trillion. And he knows that this greedy bastard will go for $12 trillion regarding anything. So this is a deal what now is being discussed between all his so-called assistants, Witkov and Kushner, that, okay, US is bringing Ukraine to Putin, completely subsided, completely capitulated, and in exchange, Putin will deliver the essentially all Russian natural resources. I doubt very much that they're worth $12 trillion because a lot of them are under the ground. You have to figure out how to get them out. You have to do feasibility studies. It's a project which will take probably 25 years, and there will be no Russia 25 years from now. That's for sure. So he is playing a game with the bankrupt criminal, but he is himself bankrupt criminal. So you shouldn't be surprised about this. The only thing is, I doubt very much that the deal, even if it will be arranged, will go through Congress, through the representatives and senators, and it will be satisfactory to international agreements. So you are actually, for a chunk of money, you are buying independence of the country and just taking it over.
So do I understand this, that Putin has offered Trump $12 trillion in economic development money that would go to the U.S. from Russia?
It's not gonna to go to U.S.
No,
it will go
it's
to
gonna
Trump,
go to Trump.
his friends and family. What U.S. has to do with that? Nothing. Forget about U.S. U.S. will continue to save every little penny, follow behind on rent, looking for a job, go to
Sasha leaked the main part of the story. He really did. I don't know, Sasha, you should, I mean, you did. You leaked because there's a lot of interconnection of what was going on with Trump, with Epstein. John Mitchell worked with Epstein for quite some time. He was an attorney general. So yeah, there was a lot going on there. We've always heard that Trump had dealings with KGB, but yeah, absolutely. There's a huge interconnection going on there, but it was to serve the elite. They serve the elite, and you're absolutely right. And I nicknamed the book, The Billionaires Pedophile Country Club, because Epstein finally got to a certain point in all of his stuff, which pissed Trump off. And, you know, everyone thought it was the bidding war on the house or him taking girls from Mar-a-Lago. No, Epstein came in and said billionaires only. Well, Trump wasn't a billionaire at that time. So, but Epstein said billionaires only in my club. I don't want to talk to anyone else anymore. So,
one more thing about this $12 trillion.
Right.
Russia doesn't have $12 trillion. Their GDP for last year was $2.5 trillion. So I don't know where they're getting the 12 trillion number from.
There's money behind scenes being transferred in probably every currency you can get. They generated trillions of dollars behind charities, nonprofits that were all tax-free. And Epstein found a law that benefited him greatly in the Virgin Islands that immediately gave him 90% tax write-offs. So yeah, I mean, Epstein upon his death got $120 million tax refund a year after his death for the company that he set up while he was in jail.
So you should remember that Epstein started off as a math teacher. He was good at numbers. If anybody could find ways to get away with his scam, it'd be Epstein.
But he didn't even have a college. Right.
Yeah,
he didn't even have a college.
He was a creepy guy, but he was a smart guy. And so he was able to set up, I mean, he started doing creepy shit in the 80s, I think, right? And he was able to get away with it for 25
Well, when
30.
he was a teacher, he was doing some creepy stuff. And I think that's our sign that the show is coming to a wrap. Thank you, everyone, for watching World Edition on this beautiful day of February 2, 2026. Don't forget to stay healthy so that you can stay wealthy. And we'll see you tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Everyone, take care. Keep watching what's going on. Keep your mind open to the truth. And don't be afraid to ask why or who. Take care.